Welcome to the Medical Device Made Easy podcast. Here is Munir Al from easymedicaldevice.com, and today we'll help you to define what kind of testing or validation you have to do for your software. So yeah, we see a lot of people coming and saying, "Oh, I have a software. What should I test?" So here will be the answers to your questions. So if you are doing some software development or whatever, listen to that before maybe you complete your process, because this information will be important because you have to do things before also, not just after the development of your products. And for that, I have with me Anindia Mukherjee. Anindia, welcome to the Medical Device Made Easy podcast.
Hi, Munir. Good morning.
Great. So, Anindia, thank you for joining. On this topic of software development, so I know that you have a lot of experience. So it's why Mandy will be having, I hope, a great episode to educate people. But before we start, can you make an introduction of yourself?
Oh, thanks, Munir, for inviting me again. So I'm co-founder and CEO at S-Cube Technologies. I've got overall more than 2 decades of experience in the quality, regulatory, and my focus has been software, whether software, requirement analysis or design and development or testing. So basically, have done a lot of hands-on software development and testing. And last probably 1 decade or so, I've been helping team through my consulting ability to to do the design and development of software as a medical device or software in a medical device. So
Great.
that's in a nutshell I've been doing.
Great. So thank you for that. And as said, today we'll be trying to specifically target one subject, which is testing and validation, mainly because we have a lot of customer. I don't know if you see that now, but there are more and more and more of manufacturers that starts to develop applications, softwares, etc. We also artificial intelligence. So it raises more and more questions also from their side, because maybe they are good in coding and this, but they are not really good in documenting or compliance. So do you see also that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of digitalization in our industry, and it's very important that the mindset of the product owner or the development team is to achieve that quality. Now, it's very important to understand that why testing is important. I always ask that, why you want to do testing. So they say that, okay, to have a high standard of our product and to achieve that quality. But it's very important to understand that what the quality is all about. So if I say that through testing will ensure that the product achieves quality, then what's quality? A simple definition is achieve what users expect. Yeah. So we have to achieve what the user is asking for, and you achieve it best through various types of testing.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
and when we go here, for example, let's take a hypothetic software. Mainly, imagine now that you want to develop an application for, I don't know, for tracking your blood sugar, for example. Let's say that. So this is the idea. I want to track my blood sugar. How do you turn this idea to kind of a checklist of things to test? So what are in the big picture, because we'll go on details on the step by step, but I want just to give maybe an idea in the big picture. How do you do this thing? So many, you said first you need to know what people are willing to do with this app. So what is then the idea here after that?
Sure. See, so the big picture is at a very high level, the concept of testing should start from understanding the intended user, and the intended environment. So we'll talk about it in detail. But to start with, the tester or anyone in the software team should have a very clear idea about what is the intended use, who are the intended users, and what is the intended environment. From there, you start writing the user needs. Now, this user needs become basically the scope of the software validation. And then you narrow down the user needs into the different requirements, different levels of requirements that we say. And these different levels of requirements will then become the scope for your different levels of verification testing. So So, nutshell, we have two different types of testing. One is verification testing and one is validation testing. For validation testing, you need to understand the user needs, which comes from the intended use, intended purpose. And the verification testing is basically to verify the different levels of requirements, different types of requirements. So that is basically, at a very high level, the big picture of software testing.
Yeah, exactly. And you talked about user needs. So I had the experience with some manufacturers coming to us saying, "Oh, we have already developed a prototype and we are now ready to go for certification, etc., or to finalize the design." So, and when I asked the question, "Do you have some user needs?" The answer was, "What's that?" So mainly it's like a bad start, if I can say. So, what is your thinking now of people that are jumping directly to coding? What can be the issue that they will be finding here on this way?
Unearth the pulse of the medtech world with MedTech Conf, a dynamic platform featuring global events on medical devices, biologicals, IVD, and pharmaceuticals. Stay informed, stay ahead, connect, share, and elevate your knowledge. Become an official sponsor. Make your event shine on the map. MedTech Conf, your key to the medtech universe. Remember, the future is now, and it's at your fingertips with MedTech Conf.
So suppose straight away jumping into the testing and still followed by the software testers doing testing may ensure that technical things might have been tested. So your code is good. The code is high quality, and the testing has been done, and there are no software technical bugs. However, I can guarantee you that without understanding the user needs, you have made a product which is incorrect and incomplete because the developers, they did not know that what the user wants, or what are the expectations of the user, and they have just achieved a product which is tested by the tester without even knowing that what they were achieving. Furthermore, if the user needs were not clear, then we don't have the real users to validate them, and not performing a validation testing also is a major non-compliance from the regulatory perspective. So without user needs, you have not achieved what the user was looking for, and you have not achieved what standard and regulation was looking for. So
Exactly, yeah. And mainly, so we have talked a lot about those user needs, those specification requirements. So mainly, you have defined that. Now, um, what are the steps after that? So I know that, for example, let's say I want my application to be able to track blood sugar. Let's take this example. Then my requirements will be to maybe I don't know what is the way to do that. For example, there is a sensor that will be taking some information and then will be analyzing, etc. I will use maybe Bluetooth to communicate that to whatever mobile application. I mean, you see those kind of things that is here is the user need. Here is mainly how I will do that through some specification requirements, etc. Then when I define all that, if can you yeah help us to on the step-by-step process to
sure.
now what how can I test that one? So what are the requirements for testing this kind of thing? So is there like a methodology to follow? Is there already some tests that are existing and I need just to follow those testing? I mean, how is this working this?
Sure. I'll again start with the very basic that the intended use should be very clear. So let's say the intended use of such app which tracks blood sugar is let's say to track, store, and sends an alert, for example. Now this basically can convert into the high-level user needs such as logging blood glucose manually, and let's say syncing with glucometers or syncing with your wearable or phone, and then setting some alerts, right? So that's the user need. Then from there, you start writing the functional requirements or software requirements, which says that app shall allow manual glucose entry, The app shall trigger an alert if the glucose is, out of range, and the insulin has to be taken, something of that sort, right? So what I'm trying to explain here is that it's the first step is what is the purpose? What is the intended purpose? Along with that, it's very important to know who are the intended users, because that will lead you to have your test strategy and get the test data properly, because the age group or the
Yeah.
gender or ethnicity, this is very important to have your test data correct. And then test environment is important from the intended environment. Is it the home used, or is it to be used in clinic under some supervision, or at home with no supervision? So intended use, who are the users and what is the environment, is the first stepping stone for have a good and solid test strategy. So from there, you have to start writing, or as a quality, you have to start ensuring that user needs are properly written from there. Like I said, that logging blood glucose manually and syncing it with the glucometers or wearables. Now, this becomes the candidate for your validation of the by the real users, because when the product is done, you have the real users in the real environment to test whether what was expected, the user needs, are met or not. So we have different terminology, like having the summative testing, etc. Now, from there, from the user needs, you basically go level down in a way that it is understood by the software developers, designers, and testers, right? Because user needs could be just a statement, which are the real user statement, which a real user can use to test. However, that's not good enough to design and develop your software. So to design and develop your software, you have to start writing in the language of software developers. So you have to go, a little bit deeper, where you say that app shall allow, the let's say the manual entry, the manual glucose entry. The app shall trigger an alert. Now here, even the requirements can be narrowed down deeper. So we usually have 2 levels or 3 levels of requirements. And these levels then manifest into different levels of verification. So the lowest level of requirement could be, the writing the code, right? And correspondingly, you have the unit level verification. Then when you start integrating the unit, then the word integrating leads to the integration testing. And when all these components, the units integrate into components, and when the components are integrated into system, then you have the system level testing. So in the testing world, we say these are the different levels of verification: unit level verification, integration level verification, and system level verification. Now, at the system level, then you have different types of testing. So different types of testing could be the functional testing. The functional testing is basically, what it is supposed to do and what it is not supposed to do. So you have the positive test cases, negative test cases. Then you have the non-functional testing, wherein you have the performance testing, that, okay, the app is doing what it is supposed to do, but it should do within my time expectation. This should be my performance. It should not be too delayed alert, or not too fast, those kind of things. Then you have, if you have a connected device, to internet, then obviously, we all talk about security testing.
Yeah.
Then you have maybe the compliance testing, where you have to meet your standards and regulations. So this is the type of testing. So basically, Puneet, just to and of course, I missed to talk about the risk-based testing, right? So everything that you do, from the intended use to the user need, two different levels of requirements, you always look for different types of hazards, or different types of situation that can lead to risk. So that's the key, that you always have the risk-based testing. So the idea here is to understand the intended use, intended user, intended environment. From there, you have the user need. User need is used by the real user in the real environment for to perform the validation testing. From the user need, you have different levels of requirements that are catered by different groups, because the lowest level of requirements are used in the low level design, which are used by the architect or the software developers, are done, and that we call it a development testing, the testing unit testing done by the developers. Then the integration level, then the system level is basically an independent QA group or
Okay.
independent testing group who does the testing. And here in testing, you have like different levels of testing. You have the different types of testing. And overall, the approach should be the risk based, that we understand that what are the different risks to the user. And here it is very important to understand what type of users you are, so that you exactly plan for the risk relevant to that user, the risk that relevant to that kind of environment. Because home-based device, home-based app is very different. The risks are very different when it is used in the clinics, right? So that kind of thing. And when you start doing the testing, then you have the things like the traceability should be good. The each of the requirements are traced to the test cases. If not, we call them an orphan requirements. And you set up the expectations, and you write everything. And when you perform the test execution, then you see whether the actual result meet the expected result or not. If not, then you start logging the defects, and then the concept of defect lifecycle. So overall, that's the a detailed explanation of the testing.
Great. I mean, yeah, it looks so when you describe it, it's important for people to be listening to say that yeah, it's not just a simple thing. It's really a connection of a lot of elements that at the end can be huge. But if you don't start correctly at the beginning with the, as you mentioned, the intended purpose, the user needs, the users, the environment, and the user needs, etc. requirements. If you don't start correctly that, you cannot really define the testing correctly also, because mainly, as you said, it depends where it is used. You will not do testing of a device used in a clinic if it's used home base, or if it's used maybe by emergency team that are outside and going in an emergency environment, etc. So it depends exactly what it is used for. You said things.
There's a saying, Munir, that 60% of the defect can be prevented if we know the requirements, and who are the users well. If
Exactly.
the requirements are clear, and if it is clear that who are using and where it is getting used, 60% of the defects or bugs can be prevented, and rest 40% can be prevented with a solid strategy of software testing.
Exactly, yeah. And during your speech, you talked about standards. Are there any standards that are, if I can say, magic standards that I can use for every everything, or do we have maybe also some specific standards for specific application? I mean, how do you see the standard environment for this kind of testing? Because standards are important because they tell you exactly how to test and what to test and etc.
Sure. So it depends, since we are talking here about the software medical device. So obviously, the popular standard is IEC 62304, and it does talk about the verification and the different levels of verification. So the safe to use and to show the authorities that we have followed the 62304 and it's compliant, because 62304 does talk about the different levels of requirements and correspondingly different levels of verification. However, if you want to tell your testers that what to follow, so there's an international software testing qualification board, which is known as ISTQB. So they offer a lot of good principles of testing. Then we have IEEE a standard where it talks about the testing concepts and definition. It starts from the test plan, then test protocol, test execution. It talks about the test documentation. And obviously, when you talk about the validation, the GAMP5, it gives a lot of valuable concept to have the good documentation practice, because it's very important, Munir, that our overall work, our overall testing work is compliant with these standards. And this can happen only when testers or the team start documenting everything that they have been doing right from the start of their work. They should not do the documentation in the end, but it's a parallel process. So when you talk about the standard, it's important that the documentation happens so that the compliant can be can be evidenced. Yeah, but these are the standards. And also, FDA design control, it talks about the design verification.
Yeah.
So everything that I talked about, the different levels of requirements and then verifying them. And it also talks about the design validation, which is correspond to the user needs.
Exactly.
So at a very high level, the FDA design control, they talk about the different levels of testing and verification testing, validation testing. IC 62304 I already mentioned. Then ISO 13485, it does the clause 7 mention about different testing, that testing should be done. Not in detail, but
Yeah.
to have a good right education, and if someone wants to really learn the testing concepts, I would say one of the IEEE standards, if I remember correctly, 29119 IEEE standard, and ISTQB, which is International Software Testing Qualification Board. If you just Google it, you find they talk about a lot of good testing concepts.
Great. We talked also about writing the test, and at a certain moment, you said that you write the test that you will do, and you define the criteria for passing and not passing the test. Those criteria for passing and not passing, is it like something that you define? You say, I want it to be like three, three whatever level, and if I'm at two, no, it's not good. But if I'm at four, I'm good. So I am the one that is define those criteria, and I can fake also the thing and say, oh, okay, let me reduce my criteria because of that. So how do you see this kind of thing also?
Sure, great. So I always suggest that the testers, although they are the independent testing team, so that they have the fair, deal of testing. However, it's very important that the domain experts are involved. So, and also someone who understands the safety of for the patient of this app or of this software product. So what I'm trying to explain, that it's not only the responsibility of the tester to define the different test scenarios and write the test cases. The testers should definitely involve the domain expert of that particular application, and even the regulatory experts, so that they know that what are the expectations from the regulations. Then the expert from the patient safety. So yeah, I mean, so having all these teammates getting reviewed, or the tester should also be involved when the requirements are written. When the requirements are written, it's written by the product expert, the product owner, the domain expert, like I said. So they all sit in a room, they write the requirement, and while the development team understand that the requirements, and then they start thinking about the design of the software and then the coding. This is the time when the testers should also get involved, and with their expertise of testing strategy, they should be understanding the content of the product. And because the testers cannot be expert in the product, they cannot be know each and everything, which probably they would require a medical expert to tell. Like you were talking about the diabetes.
Yeah.
So you cannot expect, or we cannot expect, the testers should know each and everything about that disease. However, if a medical expert, be a doctor or any healthcare practitioner, help in telling the testers that if this happens, what will go wrong, right? So in that way, the testers understand the application better from the experts, and then they start writing the test cases.
Yeah, exactly. Because yeah, the requirements should not be like all the limits or the thresholds, etc., the metrics should not be like, oh, guess, a guess. Oh, let me put 5 or let me put 3. I don't know. Let's see. No, you have to have really some kind of discussion. It's why, as we said at the beginning, don't go to coding directly. You have really to sit down and discuss about all this, how you will do that, because when it will arrive the time to do it, it should be like coherent, it should be like making sense and not just numbers thrown on the table and say, okay, let's pick this or let's pick that.
It's very
Um,
important that all the test cases, all the test scenarios are well reviewed. And then the test data are very important. So the functionality can be tested with any test data is a wrong mentality, is a wrong strategy. So the test data should be relevant. Um, uh, you know, um, which is very similar to what the actual world would require, right? So that can happen only when you get it reviewed by an expert. So that's very
exactly.
important.
Yeah, and we say that it's better to have some kind of outside expert or outside tester also that are doing this, so that if I can say, they are not biased by any of the requirements. Okay,
So,
so I think it was great. I hope, yeah, it was really a great add to people to get this information about testing. Maybe a last word. So, in your experience, what kind of mistakes maybe you've seen a lot that maybe we can try to help people to avoid now and say, okay, don't do that because it will lead to a big error or whatever. So maybe you have some idea of some mistakes that people are always doing? Hey, just a second. Do you need a EU, Swiss or UK representative? Then choose Easy Medical Device. We can represent you and also become your importer. Contact us at eo@easymedicaldevice.com.
sure. One is not understanding the requirement of the software well. And So that's why it's important to do what we call as verifying the requirement, or requirement verification or requirement testing, where there should not be any ambiguity. The requirement should not be complicated. Because if there is a lot of complicated requirement and a big requirement, and which is not split into small chunks of requirement, it may happen that the testers miss some scenarios. So not understanding the requirement is the first mistake. Then the documentation is very, very important. So whatever the understanding of the requirement the team should start writing, so that the test scenarios that they start thinking, and then they start writing. This leads to a proper traceability. So next, another mistake that testers do, that they don't start writing the test traceability or the requirement traceability right from the beginning. So a common myth is, or a myth in the industry is that after we perform the testing, then we start writing the traceability metrics. That's very wrong. Traceability metric starts from the user need. That each of the user needs are have linked to the different levels of requirements, to the design outputs, because requirements is a design input, trace to the design output, then the design verification, and finally the validation to the user need. Not writing the traceability metrics and not writing the traceability metrics from the beginning and in detail is another mistake. And not following a guide or a standard right from the beginning could be another mistake, where the standards clearly say that first you start writing the test plan, the test protocol. So basically a guided approach, right? So these are the mistakes that the testers do. Another mistake is involving testers, in the later phase of the development, where the development is done now involving the testers, and then they start and just doing a testing as a checklist, which is
Yeah.
quite fatal. The testers are as important as the developers, and they should be involved right from day one when the requirements are written. The time when the developers or the architect understanding the requirements, this is the time when the testing team also understand the requirements, so that when the software designs are being made, the testing strategy, the test plan are also created, and the test protocols are created, not involving the domain experts, like I said before, is another mistake. So involve the domain experts, involve the patient safety experts, involve the regulatory affair expert. This is basically the thing. These are the basic mistakes which I can think of, Munir.
No, great. No, I think it's enough. I think if they can already solve that, I suppose it's they have 90% of the project that is good. Okay, now let's talk about your development. So SQ Technology, you are developing an eQMS. Can we explain mainly what is an eQMS to people? Because the eQMS that we talk about is important also for what we talked before, because you are also helping manufacturers for that. So what is an eQMS?
See, I mean, eQMS is it's basically a platform where you have a quality management system which makes your process compliant. And starting from having a quality manual, defining the quality policy, taking care of the training management. Then, if you have vendors and suppliers, the supplier management, and identifying and logging the non-conformity, the NC, and then the kappa management, the feedback and complaint management. So all of these in a single platform, you can or even it can be less in the scope, but overall this is the scope of the quality management system. Now in that, a very important thing is the design control. So at SQ, what we have done, and as you all know, that we made, and with your help as well, Munir, your mentorship, that we made Smart Eye as the eQMS. So that talks or that gives you a platform, that gives the platform not just for the process but also for the design control. So today, the topic that we have discussed, that writing the user needs, and having a validation framework, writing all the requirements out of user needs, then have the verification framework. So we have achieved that entire framework in Smart Eye. So Smart Eye is not just a process platform where we have all these kappa management, supply management, training management. Of course, they are pretty solid in Smart Eye, but we also gives the different frameworks and different web forms where the our users or the customers, they are able to write the user need, they are able to perform the validation, and the design inputs, design outputs, and they do the verification. When they do the verification, there are automated trace metrics that are generated, and they clearly say that each of these user needs have been validated by the users. So there is a trace there between user need and validation. And also in Smart Eye, they write the requirements out of the user needs, and then they do the verification of each of these requirements. Smart Eye also generate a report where any user need is left out, that it doesn't have a requirement, or any requirement is left out against a test case. So a requirement having no test case, let's say. So you also get these kind of reports, and it's all automated. And then you get into the test execution stage, where you have all the frameworks ready, that these are the expected result. And then when the testers start testing on the real product application, they can log their result in Smart Eye as the actual result. And if the actual result has a discrepancy from the expected result, you can automatically create the bugs or the defects in Smart Eye. And Smart Eye gives the not just the automated trace matrix, which is quite solid, and it clears all the audit. But it also gives the meaningful reports, the test report, where it talks about what was the test purpose, what you have achieved. It connects you with the risk module, where each and every stage, right from the user need, requirement, verification, validation, the risk was covered in parallel. So each and every stage was risk assessed and risk evaluated, and risk. Then there are risk mitigations and things like that. Yeah, so basically, in at SQ in Smart Eye, we give the platform for the entire design control with a very solid framework of testing.
Yeah, exactly. And I suppose, as we said, it's a big topic, so it's not like something small. So as I'm always saying, people can always use paper, if I can say, to do that, or some Word files or Excel files, etc., to use that. But here, the idea of this, as you've said, there is a compliance check also, that verification that everything is ready. So we have also some tools there that can be using. Yeah, yeah. Because I'm, as I said, as you said, I'm also helping for the development of the software. So yeah, we try really to think about everything. Okay,
That's
so
that's a very good point, Munir. You have put where we offer the checklist in Smart Eye at each and every stage, whether the user needs were captured properly or not. That's a checklist. Whether the requirements are created from user need properly or not. There's a checklist. There's a checklist for the verification, validation, the defects. So, yeah, I mean, testing is a combination of an art and a science, right? So,
exactly,
of course, the experience and skill sets and training gets the art of the experience. However, we also made it like a science where there are no human errors, right? So if you follow what we give in Smart Eye, then you don't make mistakes, right? So
exactly,
yeah.
yeah. Okay, so great. I think, yeah, I mean, I suppose that people can get some tests about Smart Eye also, so that they can come and contact you if they want to verify or to get a demo for it.
Sure, always willing to help, and we work as partners to our users, to our customers. We just don't sell subscriptions, but we work with them, and we work like partners. And there's a lot of knowledge in SQ because a lot of QARA people are involved, including yourself. And I think we together work with them for their success. Yeah, and
Exactly.
I look forward to meeting all those people and will be happy to help them.
Yeah, I will put all the details on the show notes. So put your mainly your contact details, the contact details for S-Cube, and then people I hope will contact you. I will maybe also put some of the standards that you mentioned. So I will just maybe ask you later if you can send me some links so that I can put that there. But yeah, people don't hesitate to go to the show notes to get those standards or to get those contact details for Anindia. And if you want, as I've said, to have an eQMS, so don't hesitate also to go to Anindia for testing Smart Eye because yeah, it's a great tool. I tested it myself, so it's a great tool. Okay, so thanks Anindia. It was really a pleasure to have you. Thanks for your support and all the information you provided, and I wish you a nice day.
My pleasure, Munir, and good luck for everything that you do. You
Thank you.
always made all of us very, very, very proud. And I'm honored to be part of this podcast. Thank you very much, Munir.
Thank you very much, Anindia. Thank you.
Yes, thanks.